When you've got questions, he always has an answer. It's Sean Hannity this afternoon at 2, right before Joe Walsh at 5 on AM 560. The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan and Amy. So a lot of discussion over a number of pro-life bills that have made their way to governor's desks and are being signed. Heartbeat bill in Missouri, in Louisiana, in Georgia, and, of course, the Alabama abortion law. That is the subject of much debate, even among pro-lifers.
Yeah, pro-lifers. President Trump, he tweeted out, as most people know, and those of you who would like to know, I am strongly pro-life, with 3 exceptions: rape, incest, and protecting the life of the mother, the same position taken by Ronald Reagan.
But not by Alabama, which does not have those exceptions. Jeffrey Toobin, CNN's legal analyst, who doesn't exactly come to this issue with clean hands since he impregnated a colleague's daughter and then tried to force her to have an abortion. But okay, scumbag that he is. No surprise, no moral turpitude clause in CNN employment contracts, apparently. Jeffrey Toobin on the prospect of the Supreme Court taking this up.
I mean, look, Donald Trump said in the third debate with Hillary Clinton, if I get 2 or more appointments to the Supreme Court, automatically, that's the word he used, automatically Roe v. Wade will be overturned. And I think the president was exactly right. Roe v. Wade is gone, and every woman in Alabama who gets pregnant is going to be forced to give birth soon. And that's going to be true in Alabama, and it's going to be true in Missouri, and it's going to be true probably in Georgia. And that's what the law is, because that's what the presidential election was about, in part, last time.
Would this go into effect, though, if the Supreme Court hasn't ruled on it?
Well, I think they are going to rule on it, and I think they're going to uphold it. I mean, this is what this fight has been about for years.
So that's on the legal front. And the intellectual front, it's nicely encapsulated. I mean, you've heard from Virginia Governor Ralph Northam. You've heard from New York Governor Andrew Cuomo. So you get the sort of pro-infanticide position. But how about putting a little exclamation point on it? Christine Quinn, former New York City Council speaker and mayoral candidate, on CNN debating Rick Santorum, her definition of life or the lack thereof.
When a woman gets pregnant, that is not a human being inside of her. It's part of her body. And this is about a woman having full agency and control of her body.
So that's, you get the sense of it. Nothing new under the sun, including the arguments that are made. So what about the Alabama law? For more on this, we're pleased to be joined by Mairead McArdle, contributor to National Review, Washington Examiner, Spectator USA. She's got a piece at The Spectator that Alabama's pro-life law is a progressive leap forward. Mairead, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Dan and Amy, thanks so much for having me.
So what about the idea that this is smart politics in addition to sound policy? There is quite a bit of disagreement. David Harsanyi suggesting that this is the Alabama law specifically gives ammo to the pro-abort side they otherwise wouldn't have. It's too much politically to handle. It's not the smartest approach. David French, others, seemingly yourself, disagree.
I do disagree, yes, and because I think that if people want to be intellectually honest about this law, they evaluate their own name as progressive, because most of the people who object to the law call themselves progressive. And basically, in my piece, I argued that the progressive name is a very ill-fitting name for this group of people, because the whole idea behind being a progressive is thinking of innovative solutions to very stubborn problems like unwanted pregnancies. And what you hear over and over again, mostly on Twitter, but from anyone who's opposing this law, is that there's only one solution to this problem, and that is for a woman to be able to have the life she wants. If she has an unwanted pregnancy, she has to abort her child. There's no other solution. So I think progressive is a very, just an ill-fitting name for that group of people.
What do you think the Alabama bill, though, is too extreme? I mean, there's no exception for rape, incest, or the mother, safety of the mother.
Oh, well, there actually is an exception for the a serious health risk to the mother. That's the only exception. But yes, rape and incest there is not an exception for. But again, that's what makes this bill, and even we'll if it's a politically, if it helps advance the pro-life cause in the legal arena. But as far as being intellectually honest, it is, because if as pro-life people believe it is the killing of a child, the way the child was conceived does not make it not a child. So in my view, this bill is the most consistent as far as the pro-life way of thinking.
And the point you make about progressives not living up to their moniker is in part the distribution of abortions across race. Black mothers make up the majority of the abortion industry's business in the state of Alabama. 60% of the abortions performed snuff out the life of a black baby, right, while only 36% are performed on white mothers. So, use the progressive sort of equity line of argumentation against them, essentially.
I do, yeah, and that was one of my main incentives for writing the piece, because that's an argument you hear all the time from people pushing this law and the other heartbeat laws, that they say, oh, it affects minorities, and in Alabama, particularly the black community, more than it affects whites, and because in Alabama, minorities tend to work, and I want to turn that around on them, because yes, it does affect minorities more. It means that the populations would shrink faster once you give them more abortion access. So it's really not a good argument, and you could I'm not accusing anyone of being racist, but the way it ends up, the effects of it end up being a kind of a racist outcome, because you have poor populations shrinking at a faster rate.
It was interesting yesterday at the Fox News town hall with Mayor Pete, when the topic of abortion came up and infanticide. He sort of dismissed that as, well, that those are rare cases, 6,000 a year, rare cases.
Not to Dr. Gosling.
Gosnell, yeah,
Gosnell,
right.
excuse me.
But the argument that they make is always about rape and incest, which are less than 1% of all abortions that take place. So that's what the main criticism you're getting on the Alabama law is rape and incest exceptions aren't there. So they sort of dismiss the 1% on their end of the line of argumentation as irrelevant, while focusing only on the 1% with respect to the pro-life position. And as Lila Rose, she had a very good piece in The Hill about this, representing or amplifying the voices of women. These women count too. She recounts Ashley Sigrist. After she was raped, she had an abortion. Today, she speaks of the horror she experienced. I didn't choose to have sex. Someone else chose to rape me, but I did make the choice to have an abortion. My life was no longer more about the rape. The rape to me didn't even matter anymore, because I had to live every day knowing that I killed a child. It wasn't a rapist's child. It was my child. So you may disagree or agree with her view, but that's her view. And that's what she is expressing in terms of her feeling, her takeaway from the horror that she endured, both the crime and then what she did in terms of choosing to have an abortion. And why can't that be part of the conversation too, across the range of sort of subtextual issues on the matter?
Right, and that's a very good point. And that's just part of having a healthy debate and listening to everyone who has a perspective and maybe an experience to go along with their subject. And one thing I noticed was that I thought this was a good point too, that there were a couple of pro-life speakers on Twitter saying, right around the time when the law was passed, or a couple days afterward actually, that they said, I'm sorry for all the children of rape and incest or other undesirable circumstances who told for the last 48 hours that they shouldn't have been born.
Yeah.
Including women who've been conceived in that horrible way. So that was it. I just think it's a good idea to just for intellectual consistency to turn some of these things around, the arguments that we keep hearing over and over again around on people making them, just to make sure that we're considering all angles and not just, it felt like screeching to me when I was listening to the very loud pro-choice activists for days after that law arguing for it. So it's good to quiet down a little bit and listen to people like the ones you were describing, women who have maybe a different perspective on the matter.
I think those pea hats they wear induce migraines, and so they're in great pain, and that's just why they're shrieking out. Mairead McArdle, a columnist for National Review, Washington Examiner, and Spectator USA. Mairead, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thanks so much, Jan.
Take care.
And she joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
You're listening to Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft and Amy Jacobson on AM 560. The Answer.